What do you do when you discover a fatal flaw in a multi-billion-dollar AI defense system? Do you dare to speak up, even though you know no one wants to hear bad news and your career could be ruined? Or do you stay silent? Because the report looks fine and your superiors need a win. At the Pentagon, silence is rarely out of fear. It is a weapon, a tool of calculation, and I had to work for a man who wielded that weapon. My job is not to fight on the battlefield. I fight on servers. My mission is to find the flaws before they kill our soldiers. But I've learned one thing. The most dangerous bug isn't in millions of lines of code. It lies in a man's ambition. Major Galloway bet his entire career that I would obey and stay silent. He miscalculated. I am Captain Evan Reed. In the high-security corridors of the Cyber Operations Command, people call me Spectre the Ghost. The name isn't in my official file, but it accurately describes the work I've done for the past 8 years. An invisible presence, with a decisive impact. When the Fifth Fleet's communication system was attacked by malware, I was the one who stayed up for 3 nights, in a windowless room, tracking and neutralizing it just hours before a major exercise began. The commanding colonel received the Legion of Merit. My name was only noted under technical support in the 17-page report. When a $2 billion intelligence satellite suddenly went silent, I rewrote 70,000 lines of patch code and sent the fix into orbit from a ground station in Germany. The project leader was promoted. I received a pat on the back and the praise. Well done, Reed. My file states that I lack command qualities. That's the military's polite way of saying he's good at his job. Let him work in the server room, but let someone else do the handshaking and medal receiving. I had accepted that. As long as the system worked, who got the credit didn't matter. Things were supposed to continue that way until Operation Aegis Shield came along. This wasn't a regular project. It was the most important top-secret project of the decade. Developing an AI defense system capable of countering swarm UAV attacks, the nightmare of every modern strategic planner. At the first briefing, in a room where the air was thick with the rank of the attendees, General Thompson, the head of Cyber Command, did something unprecedented. He pointed to the system architecture diagram on the large screen and said, his voice resonant, "Captain Reed's analysis is the foundation for the success of Aegis Shield." The room fell silent. For the first time in 8 years, my name was spoken by a 4-star general. Not as support, but as the foundation. I maintained a calm expression, just nodding professionally, but inside, something had changed. A glimmer of hope, however small, had appeared. I thought, maybe this time it would be different. I was wrong. A week later, I understood why I was wrong. He walked into the briefing room with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a perfect curve that seemed to have been well rehearsed in front of a mirror, and a handshake that was too tight. Major Bryce Galloway. His nickname was Viper, but not because he was dangerous on the battlefield. It was in the conference rooms. They don't send a staff officer like Galloway to a high-tech project to write code. They send him to manage perceptions, shake hands, and ensure every report sent to the Pentagon is approved always green. A short announcement was sent out. Major Galloway was appointed commander of Operation Aegis Shield. I and the other engineers would report to him. My official role? Technical advisor and deep analysis. Just another way of saying tech support. The loop began again. Galloway liked meetings. He talked a lot about disruptive thinking and strategic vision. I spent my time in the server room, where the whirring of the fans and the cool air were more pleasant than his platitudes, and it was there that I discovered a serious flaw, not a bug in the source code, but something more sophisticated. A part of the AI's input data was systematically corrupted. It was like teaching a sniper with a blurry scope. The AI would learn wrong, classify wrong, and in a real-world scenario, it would be a pre-programmed disaster. I could visualize it clearly. The system might mistake an Allied cargo plane for an enemy missile and order it to be shot down, or worse, It could ignore a real UAV swarm attack because the corrupted data made it believe it was just a false signal. Hundreds, maybe thousands of lives would pay the price just so a report could get a green light. I raised the issue on a Tuesday morning, during the briefing. "Major," I said, my voice even, "I recommend re-evaluating the threat classification algorithm. There's a discrepancy in the input data." Galloway, standing next to the screen, turned to look, not at my eyes but through me, as if I were part of the wall. He wanted the whole room to hear his answer. "Captain Reed," he said, his voice higher than usual. "This is for the generals. Your job is in the server room." A few people shifted uncomfortably. I remained silent, looking straight at him. That evening I wrote a technical report. 2 pages, clear, direct, risk analysis and a proposal to postpone the test. I sent it up the chain of command. The response came 2 hours later. A single line. "Don't try to make others look bad to make yourself look good." I stared at the words on the screen. I felt my jaw clench for a moment, hard enough to hear a creak by my ear, before I consciously relaxed it. A flash of anger flared up, but it was quickly extinguished. The anger didn't burn like fire, it crystallized into ice in my chest. Cold, sharp, and focused. All extraneous emotions seemed to freeze, leaving only a process running in my head. Analyze the problem. Identify the variable. Build a solution. Galloway wasn't a colleague. He was a faulty variable that needed to be removed from the system. For a moment, I hesitated. This was a path with no return. Exposing a superior officer, no matter how wrong he was career suicide. But then the image of the young soldiers I had met at the base, the ones who put their full trust in the technology we created, appeared in my mind. I fight on servers, so they don't have to die on the battlefield. The hesitation vanished. The system had to be fixed, and the one who caused the error had to be removed. The official channel was blocked. He didn't just ignore a security warning, he ascribed a dirty motive to me. The final straw came on Friday morning. Galloway walked into my office without knocking. He leaned his hands on my desk. "Reed, I need access to your draft work folder. I have an important report next week." For a moment, I considered the possibility that he genuinely wanted to re-examine the issue. A fragile glimmer of hope. I decided to test it. My voice remained professional. "Understood, Major. Do you need me to prioritize the data logs related to the signal discrepancy I reported?" Galloway waved his hand, a gesture of impatience. "No. No need for such detail. Just the presentation decks, the summary charts. I need something visual, something that looks impressive for the generals." Everything became clear. His answer was his confession. He didn't care about the truth. He just needed a facade. He knew there was a problem, but didn't care. He just needed something that looked good to present, to take credit, to get promoted. He was willing to bet a multi-billion-dollar project and the lives of American soldiers on a system he knew was flawed. I nodded slowly. "Understood, Major. I will grant you access." He smiled the smug smile of someone who thought he had won. "Good. I knew you'd see reason." Galloway turned and walked away, unaware that he had just activated an entirely different protocol, not for fixing errors, but for recording evidence. The plan had taken shape. Meticulous, precise, with no way back. He wanted the draft files. He would have them. My plan wasn't complicated. The most effective traps are often simple. It wasn't based on creating false data, but on using Galloway's own arrogance against him. First, I created a folder on the shared server with a very obvious name. A-Shield, Drafts, 4, Review. Inside, I placed a few documents that looked perfectly polished. A PowerPoint presentation with visually appealing, eye-catching charts. A very professional-looking Excel model. They were the very reflection of the discrepancies I had warned about. The numbers were unrealistically optimistic, based on the corrupted datasets. that I knew Galloway would never bother to check. The heart of the trap lay in the warnings. I scattered them everywhere, clearly but not too conspicuously, just enough for a careless person to miss, but not an army court-martial to ignore. On each slide, a faint diagonal watermark read, "Preliminary draft, for internal review only." The first slide of the presentation was a warning slide, with a red background and prominent white text. Warning. This document contains unverified analysis and projections, strictly prohibited for official reporting or strategic decision-making. I even added a small, almost harmless note under the most important chart. Note. Model shows a 30% performance degradation when faced with signal interference type X. Problem under investigation. Finally, I set up a simple monitoring script, running invisibly in the background. It would record all activity on the folder, who accessed it, who downloaded it, and most importantly, it would create an immutable log of every edit made to the original files. The real work, the accurate, verified analysis, was safely on a separate server, encrypted at the highest level, where only I and God had access. And I wasn't so sure about God. The bait was set. All that was left was to wait. I sat in front of the screen, pretending to review backup code. My heart beat a little faster than usual. Suddenly, Lieutenant Chen, a rather curious network engineer, walked past and stopped behind me. "Optimizing the algorithm again, Spectre?" he asked, squinting at my log screen. "That log looks strange. User, access, monitor. Doesn't sound like a typical diagnostic script." My heart skipped a beat, but my fingers continued to glide calmly across the keyboard. "Just a monitoring utility," I replied, my voice even. "Lately, people have been copying draft files and making random edits, affecting the original datasets. I just want to ensure the integrity of the work. Better safe than sorry." Chen looked at me with a scrutinizing gaze for a moment. Then a knowing smile crossed his lips. "Ah, I get it. The higher-ups always want something that looks impressive, right? Be careful." He winked and walked away. I let out a soft sigh of relief that I hadn't realized I was holding. A small risk. Handled. The plan continued. I didn't have to wait long. Less than an hour after I granted access, my monitoring system signaled activity. 1532. User B. Galloway accessed folder. A shield. Drafts. 4. Review. 1533. User B. Galloway downloaded file. Aegis. Draft. V0.1. PPTX. I opened a terminal window, my fingers hovering over the touchpad calmly, as if waiting for a pre-known answer. I knew what would happen next. Galloway was too lazy to create a new presentation. He would just modify mine, then call it his own. Just as expected. 1535. User B. Galloway. Created new file. Aegis. Shield. Final. BG. PPTX. 1537. System recorded changes in Aegis. Shield. Final. BG. PPTX. Slide 1 warning. Deleted. Watermark on slides. Deleted. Note on slide 8. Deleted. I saved the log. Everything was recorded. The fish had taken the bait, swallowing the hook and the line. He had just signed his own indictment. In the following days, I played the role of a diligent technical support staff. Galloway, confident with his clean presentation, began using it in internal meetings, bragging about the groundbreaking analysis he had performed. He even sent an executive summary to General Thompson's office to make an impression. I just watched, took notes, and waited for the briefing at the Pentagon. The final show, where the truth would be revealed. The high-security meeting room, SCIF, at the Pentagon was cold and silent, broken only by the hum of the air filtration system. 12 people sat around the polished ebony table. Generals, experts from DARPA, and at the head of the table, General Thompson. The pressure in the room was greater than the pressure at the bottom of the sea. I sat in a corner, almost invisible, true to my role for the past 8 years. The laptop sat on the table, silent but ready. Everything I needed was inside. Galloway stepped up to the podium. He looked perfect in his meticulously ironed uniform, with the confident look of a man who believed he was in complete control of the situation. He nodded a greeting to General Thompson and began. The first slides went smoothly. Project overview, strategic objectives, the kind of general content anyone could present. Then he moved to the meat of the matter. A chart appeared, an impressive growth curve showing the system's effectiveness. As you can see, Galloway said, his voice full of pride, our model shows a nearly absolute interception rate. At the end of the table, Dr. Alistair Finch, a living legend from DARPA with thick glasses and the brain that had spawned 2 generations of defense systems, frowned slightly. In the world of defense technology, a frown from him could kill a multi-billion-dollar project. He cleared his throat, and the room seemed to get a little quieter. He spoke, his voice dry. Major, do these numbers account for the enemy's use of electronic countermeasures types B and C? Galloway blinked, his smile freezing. We have considered all possible scenarios, sir. Then why does this model ignore data from the recent exercise in the Pacific? Reports show a significant drop in performance when faced with real signal interference. A logistics colonel sitting nearby added, question followed question, aimed directly at the flaws I knew existed, the flaws Galloway had intentionally concealed. He began to falter. His answers were vague, repeating phrases like disruptive thinking and challenging assumptions. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He was sinking, and he knew it. Finally, General Thompson raised his hand, and the room immediately fell silent. He stared at Galloway, his gaze no longer holding trust, only cold disappointment. Major, are you sure about these analyses? Galloway swallowed hard. Sir, I am absolutely sure. General Thompson turned to me. All eyes in the room turned to the corner of the table where I was sitting. Captain Reed, what is your assessment? This was it. The moment. Galloway's show was over. Now, it was my turn. I stood up, walked to the podium, not looking at Galloway. It felt as if every molecule of air in the room had stopped moving. I connected my encrypted hard drive to the system. Gentlemen, I said, my voice calm and clear. Allow me to present some additional analysis. The screen switched to my presentation. The charts were more complex, the numbers more realistic, the risk models carefully calculated. I pointed out exactly the weaknesses that the experts had asked about, explained why they existed, and proposed feasible solutions. I spoke about signal interference type X, about the 30% performance degradation, and how we could fix it. I didn't accuse anyone. I just presented the data, the real data. Realizing the danger, Galloway immediately interrupted, his voice laced with unconcealed panic. General, this is a misunderstanding. Captain Reed did not provide me with the final update. He intentionally withheld information to make me look bad. I ignored him and continued to look at General Thompson. General, there may have been a mix-up regarding the document version. To clarify, allow me to present the original document that Major Galloway referenced. I opened the original file in the draft folder. The red warning slide appeared, as clear as a stop signal. The preliminary draft watermark was clearly visible on the next slide. The room began to murmur. Galloway attacked directly, his voice desperate. That's an old draft. I asked him to update it, but he didn't. He's sabotaging the project out of personal resentment. I kept my voice calm. I regret to say this, but I sent a formal warning email about these risks. I projected the email onto the screen. The line, "Don't try to make others look bad to make yourself look good," was visible for all to see. Galloway's face turned to stone. And our system records every change, I continued, my voice unchanged. This was the final blow. I projected the system log onto the screen. 1432. B. Galloway downloaded file. Aegis. Draft. V. 0.1. PPTX. 1435. B. Galloway created a new file. Aegis. Final. BG. PPTX's. Detailed log. Slide. 1 warning. Deleted. Watermark. Deleted. Note on slide 8. Deleted. The room was completely silent. All denials were meaningless in the face of undeniable digital evidence. He was not only exposed as a plagiarist, but also as a cowardly liar. He stood frozen, his face pale, his world crumbling in just a few lines of data. The hand holding the laser pointer began to tremble, and in the deadly silence, the pointer fell onto the wooden table with a dry clink. That was the only sound of defeat. As I walked back to my seat, I met the eyes of the scientist from DARPA. He said nothing, just gave a slight nod, a nod of respect from one expert to another. To me, it was worth as much as a medal. He had lost. General Thompson stood up. He didn't look at Galloway, but straight at me. In his eyes was a sign of recognition, a respect I had never seen before. "Captain Reed," he said, his voice resonant throughout the room. "Thank you. You may return to your seat." Then he turned to Galloway, and the respect in his eyes disappeared, leaving only the coldness of steel. "Major Galloway, you stay here. The MPs will meet you outside." No further words were needed. The meeting ended. The generals and experts stood up one by one, a few nodding to me as they passed. I packed up my laptop, disconnected the hard drive, and walked out of the room, without a single glance back at Galloway. I didn't need to. Outside, 2 MPs with grim expressions were waiting. Everything happened quickly and quietly. I heard that Galloway was immediately suspended, facing a series of charges under the Uniform Code of Military Justice: deceiving a superior officer, misrepresenting classified information, endangering national security. His career was over. The nickname Viper finally applied to him, but this time the venom had turned back on itself. The next morning, I received a call from General Thompson's office. When I walked in, he was alone in the room. He invited me to sit down. "I've reread your file, Reed," he said, his voice low. "It says you lack command qualities. It seems the person who wrote that report didn't understand the definition of the word commander." He paused, looking me straight in the eye. "They think a commander is someone who knows how to shake hands and has a nice smile. They were wrong. A commander is someone who puts the truth first, someone who has the courage to make the right decision, however difficult. When faced with pressure, that's what you did." He slid a file folder toward me. "The command has made a decision. Operation Aegis Shield needs a new commander. Someone who understands the system inside and out. Someone who puts truth before reputation." I opened the file. On the first page was the decision to temporarily promote me to major and appoint me as the new project commander. I was wrong. General Thompson repeated the very words I had thought. I was wrong to let someone like Galloway lead. Don't let me be wrong again. "I won't, General," I replied. I walked out of his office, the file folder in my hand. The hallway seemed wider, brighter. For the first time, I no longer felt like a ghost. Operation Aegis Shield was a success, exceeding all expectations. We corrected the flaws, refined the system, and created a true shield for the nation. I still work in cold rooms, staring at lines of code. But now, my name is on the door. And when the reports are sent out, I am the one who signs on the bottom line. Not as support, but as commander. Sometimes to be seen, you have to be willing to stay in the shadows for a long time, waiting for the right moment to flip the switch. And when you decide to flip the switch, make sure all the evidence is saved.